Okay, this is 8.2 part 1. We're going to be talking about visualizing data. So 8.1 basically told us how to gather data. Now we're going to look at what we do with that particular data. So in the last section, we talked about what a bar graph was, and particularly we talked about what a histogram was, because we had a lot of examples with histograms. Again, a histogram is a bar that is connected. A new one here is actually a Pareto chart, which is a bar graph ordered from highest to lowest frequency. So just as a quick reminder, a bar graph is one that has spaces in between the bars. Histogram is where those bars are next to each other without any space. And Pareto is a type of bar graph that shows things ordered from highest to lowest frequency. Okay, so let's look at this first example. A shoe company is very interested in finding out which color of Adidas court tennis shoes their customers prefer. To maximize their sales, the company wants to make sure that they order the right amount of each color to prevent an overstock or understock of each color. The company kept a record on how many shoes were sold and what color of Adidas court tennis shoes the customers were buying for a month. The following data is summarized before. Okay. So the last section, we completed a frequency chart. So just remember that the raw data in this case is the color, and the frequency is how many times that color was ordered. So again, your y-axis is showing you the frequency, and then the x-axis is the color of Adidas court shoes. Okay, so this is the x-axis. All right. So if we look at this, we see that blue, and I'm looking at this first column or row here. The first row here says blue, and it happens 25 times. So we can see the bar graph goes up to 25. The next one we look at is green, and green says that 52 times that color has been ordered. Then we go on to red, showing 41. White is showing 36. Black was showing as 39. And finally, gray was showing as 23. So if we come over here to the frequency, we see that the top of the bar corresponds with those numbers. So for instance, if we look at gray was 23. So our bar graph is in between 20 and 25. All right. So below the bar chart there, we have the Pareto chart showing frequency from highest to lowest. Again, this is to show the person ordering the shoes that, hey, I should probably keep a lot of green shoes in stock and not that many gray ones. Okay, so again, this is the same data as above. We're just organizing it in a different type of chart. So let's go ahead and put the name of it, Pareto chart. All right, next. We're going to look at what's called a frequency polygon. So what these usually start out with is a histogram. So we create a histogram. Remember, a histogram is a bar chart with all those bars touching each other. But instead of drawing a bar, a point is placed in the midpoint of each interval at the height equal to the frequency. Typically, the points are connected with a straight line to emphasize the distribution of data. I do want to point out something, so I'm going to use red. I'm going to go ahead and find the midpoint of each height, or the frequency of each class width. And when you do a polygon, frequency polygon, make sure that your first value goes from the x-axis to the points. So do you see how I just did that? And now I'm just connecting the dots. I'm trying to make this nice and neat for you. That's why I'm being patient with the Apple Pencil here. Okay. So again, I'm bringing those points after the first point before it was brought down to the x-axis, and last point, that value, the line was drawn down to the x-axis. Okay, so I just made up those points, the midpoints connected the lines, and if you notice, this graph is giving me the same information, but instead of using a histogram, this is called a frequency polygon. Okay. All right, so let's look at the frequency polygon. This graph shows the number of times Ted checked his email last week. How many times did he check his email on day 2? Okay, so if I want to find out that, I go to day 2 and I find the frequency. So the frequency on day 2 is 4. So let's go ahead and put that in there, 4. So he checked his email 4 times on day 2. So let me erase that and we'll do the next one. Which day did he check it most frequently? So most frequency means the highest frequency out of all of them. So if we look at that, the highest point here, which is 8, happened on day 6. So which day did he check it more frequently? It's going to be day 6. And on which days did he check it more than 5 times? All right, so let me erase the last stuff so we don't get confused. If we're checking it more than 5 times, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight frequency 5. More than 5 means I do not include the 5, okay? So what I am going to include is this value, and this value. On which days did he check it more than 5 times? Well, if I go down, the first one is day 3. The second one is day 5. And the third one is day 6. Okay, so again, what I did was I put a line at 5 and then I circled the values that were above that, and that's what I'm looking for. And I did not include 5 because it didn't say 5 times or more. It said more than 5 times. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. The graph below shows students' responses to a survey about social media usage. Okay, this is a bar graph because there's spaces in between the bars. And the frequencies are given on top of each bar. So we see YouTube is at 10, Twitter's at 5, Instagram is at 3, Snapchat is 15, and Facebook is 9. How many total users were surveyed? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the frequency of each one. So I'm just showing you that I'm using this. And I'm going to add those up. So again, I'm finding the sample size. So I'm going to add those together. So 10 plus 5 plus 3 plus 15 plus 9. And I'm going to add these up. So 10 and 5 is 15. 3 and 15 is 18. And I'm going to add 9 to that. Okay, so 15 and 18, that is 33. And then I'm going to add 9. So I got 42. I'm just going to double check that. And I do get 42 again. So with these, I just like to double check them really quick. So how many total users were surveyed? The answer is 42. What percent of users were YouTube? So if we take YouTube, we're going to take the number of people who watch YouTube over the sample size. Okay, so YouTube was 10 over the sample size, which is 42, and we're going to divide that. So 10 divided by 42. When I do that, I get 0.38. So I'm going to do that to 0.238 is what I meant to say. So 0.24 is when I round it up. So this equals 24%, changing it from decimal to percent. Okay, guys, so the first one, the answer is 42. I'm going to write that in there. The YouTube percentage is 24. So I'm going to say this is A, this is B. And then if these ratios are true for the student body of 1,260 students, how many students use YouTube? Okay, so I'm going to take the student body and I'm going to multiply that by the 24%. So I have 1,260 students. Multiply that by 0.24. And when I do that, I get 302.4. So the 0.4 doesn't make sense because we're talking about how many students. So I'm going to do 302 students use YouTube if those ratios from that sample were correct. Okay, so this is my answer to part C. Okay, all right. Okay, so that is the first part. Let's go on to pie charts, and I'm going to introduce you to these, and then I'll start a new video. A pie chart is a circle with wedges cut of varying sizes, marked out like slices of a pie or pizza. The relative size of the wedge corresponds to the relative frequencies of the categories. By the way, with pie charts, sometimes they give you percentage and sometimes they actually give you values. So the first one we're looking at is Adidas court tennis shoes sales by color. So we see that 52 shoes were sold that were green, 23 were gray, 25 were blue, 36 were white, 39 were black, and 41 were red. And by the way, these values all go back to that frequency chart we had earlier. So let's go back and look at that really quick. So at the top, remember I showed you the color and then the frequency. So now instead of representing the data with a bar chart or a Pareto chart, we're now using a pie chart to get that same information across. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video. Next video is 8.2. And then this is going to be part 2 that we're going to look at here. Okay?